shop in Boston to like help pay rent while I was training for the trials. And so people kept joking. They're like, oh yeah, she just took a 2-hour coffee break and went and ran the Olympic trials marathon.
On the Podium is back with more Olympians and Paralympians sharing their journeys to the top. On the Podium from the BBC World Service. Listen now wherever you get your BBC podcasts.
This is Parry. Okay, so I should just hide my microphones to get through the gate.
The first gate.
The first gate. Okay. Let me explain. The Zimbabwean government didn't give me permission to report. I wasn't alone. Foreign journalists from other news organisations have had their applications denied or delayed. With elections later this month, the ruling party, ZANU-PF, which has been in power since independence more than 40 years ago, has been clamping down. Opposition campaign events have been cancelled. Activists have been locked up. People here are worried about speaking up. So, for their safety, everyone in this programme will have their names changed, including our driver, who we'll call Dixon, who's taking us on a tour of the capital, Harare. And this is the Accident and Emergency Department. Have you been in there recently?
Around January.
What was it like?
Well, I think it was not good.
Welcome to the documentary on the BBC World Service. I'm Charlotte Ashton, and in this week's assignment, I'm looking at the mass exodus of workers from Zimbabwe, escaping crumbling public services and an economy on its knees. Do they always have the right drugs and equipment?
No.
Along bumpy roads, a few blocks from the hospital, is a street famous for its financial transactions.
That's the street where money changers are, from this corner.
On here, okay.
Yeah, all these guys. They're buying and selling.
Yeah. So they're buying people's Zimbabwe dollars.
Yep.
And in exchange for US dollars. Because the US dollars will retain their value and the Zimbabwe dollar is not.
It's not. And there's no ways you can keep Zimbabwe dollars now at home, in banks or even at home, because it's losing value nearly every day.
The inflation rate here is one of the highest in the world. This time last year, it hit 285%. The local currency is devaluing at eye-watering speed. So if you're paid in Zimbabwe dollars, the only way to make sure your money is worth anything at the end of the month is to quickly swap it into US dollars. This is driving a black market, which the government turns a blind eye to because it's the only way most people survive. All these guys in jeans and T-shirts, one waving at us there.
Yeah, it's like, I'm here to save you.
And you can see a guy literally counting money through the window of a car there. Yeah. This is the black market, right?
The black market area.
In action. Because everyone wants to get rid of their Zim dollars as quickly as possible.
You see like that one, that vehicle registered in South African number plate.
Ah, yeah.
Exchanging foreign currency. Buying and selling money is business in Zimbabwe.
This black market is also making a tiny elite very rich indeed. They can buy US dollars from the central bank, and there's only a limited supply available, which they get at the official rate, many times lower than the black market rate. So when they sell those cheap US dollars at the higher black market rate, they double, even triple their money just like that. Meanwhile, the majority of Zimbabweans struggle to keep up.
Hello and welcome to my humble abode. I live in a shared accommodation. It comprises of 10 bedrooms. We each have a double bedroom and an ensuite. So this is my room. Just as you enter, you have a huge side drawer where I put my cosmetics. And
Rose, as we'll call her, left Zimbabwe in July 2022. She's now thousands of kilometres from home, working as a care worker in England, sometimes with overtime up to 60 hours a week. She lives in what are essentially student lodgings.
And next to my cupboard, I have my two lovely treasures. Those are the suitcases that I used when I traveled to the UK from my country, and they're a constant reminder of the journey and the decision that I took to come here.
This isn't the life Rose had imagined for herself. Like thousands of Zimbabweans, she's escaped the ravages of the economy back home for a more stable life in the UK, which desperately needs care workers.
I have a first degree in social sciences and a master's degree in development studies. I worked in the humanitarian sector as well as in the HIV research area for a non-governmental organization for quite some time. And when COVID hit, and with people working from home, I think a lot of organizations realized that they don't need as much staff as they have. So a lot of jobs were cut, and I ended up being out of a job for almost a year.
In 2020, the British government issued 1,000 skilled visas to Zimbabweans. By 2022, that number had jumped to more than 23,000, making Zimbabwe, a country of just 17 million people, the third biggest recipient of this kind of visa, behind population giants India and Nigeria.
The main decision I made to come to the UK was based on finding stable and solid ground to be able to have a guaranteed salary every month, despite the type of work that I'm doing that is worlds apart from what I went to school to study.
Rose sends a third of her income home. She's been surprised at the cost of living in the UK and the tax bill.
When you actually receive your payslip, well, the first time you'll get the shock of your life, because you then say, okay, wow, such a huge reduction. But then at the end of the day, as you get to understand how the tax system works in this country, you appreciate to a certain extent that then the tax money is being utilized in the correct way and is not being abused. So in essence, you say, okay, it's fine, let them take the tax. At least I see where it's going. Yeah.
It's the food especially that makes Rose homesick. Rice in the UK, she says, just doesn't taste the same. But by far the biggest sacrifice she's made is leaving behind her 9-year-old daughter.
I came in the country last year, and since July 2022, I have not seen my daughter because I've not been able to visit her. Definitely this year I will not be seeing her as well because financially I'm not ready to make that move. But hopefully 2024, mid-2024, I should be able to see my child on holiday.
Rose's mother looks after her daughter back in Zimbabwe, and they stay in touch by video phone. It's not hard to imagine how difficult it is for both mother and young daughter.
Well, she has her days. Some days are quite painful for her when she just calls and literally cries saying, I'm missing you, mommy. I have not seen you in a while. When am I seeing you? I miss you. I wish you could be here to take me for my swimming lessons and stuff like that. So there are days when she's happy and there are days when she is in a bad space as well. So I take it all in as it is and just try to navigate my way.
So this is 3rd Avenue.
Yes.
And tell me why you brought me here.
We just need to see the sex workers. Look at the girls from the right side.
Oh, yeah. Young girl in a
Young girls.
short dress there. Big eyelashes, fake eyelashes and dyed hair.
Yeah, all the way down there.
And has the number of sex workers on this street increased in recent times?
It has increased. Especially they increase especially around 5. The whole night up to maybe 10 p.m. It will be full, the street. This is not good at all.
Stop at a road junction in downtown Harare and street sellers appear at your window, offering everything from loo rolls to water heaters, laminated Times Tables posters, fruit and vegetables. You have to zigzag to avoid all the holes in the road. The joke here is that only a drunk drives straight. There's a palpable sense of a place falling apart. Nowhere more than at the big government hospital, Pari-Renyatwa, or Pari as it's known. Driving around the hospital campus, you can see how tatty things are. The buildings are desperately in need of paint. Some of the windows are broken. The roads are poor. The signage is all bent and old, faded, worn away. It's clearly crumbling. It just desperately needs investment, doesn't it? It needs money.
Needs money.
And things are no better inside.
As you may well be aware, there has been a chronic decline over the last 20 years. However, there has been a much steeper decline in the last 2 years in a number of respects.
This doctor has worked in the Zimbabwean health system for 20 years.
So firstly, there has been a mass exodus of healthcare workers from Zimbabwe, mainly from the public sector hospitals, either moving to private sector hospitals in the country, moving down south to South Africa, or going overseas. Secondly, there is now an even bigger shortage of essential commodities. So, for example, drugs like paracetamol, painkillers, basic antibiotics are not uncommonly out of stock. The infrastructure has really declined and deteriorated. And it's very telling that in a quaternary hospital like Pararinyatwa Hospital, we don't have water sometimes. And a hospital not having water, I think you can imagine what the implications of that are.
In the last 12 months, Zimbabwe has had outbreaks of typhoid and cholera as water and sewage systems deteriorate. About a third of Zimbabweans are food insecure. A quarter of children under 5 are chronically malnourished. Those are the government's own figures. Healthcare has become a luxury many can't afford. What does this mean then? If you're a Zimbabwean, are people dying unnecessarily?
Yes, in short. So we absolutely see individuals, patients who've got severe disease who will not access healthcare because they can't afford it. And even individuals in chronic care. So for example, if you've got medication like blood pressure medication, which is something you take lifelong, we've seen so many patients just stop their blood pressure medication because they can't afford to buy it.
At the other end of society, though, if you've got access to dollars, there is very good treatment to be had in Zimbabwe, isn't there? Or indeed just a quick hop down in Johannesburg or further afield to Dubai.
And therein lies the real tragedy. Within Harare, you can access world-class treatment. You can certainly go down to Johannesburg, Pretoria, Cape Town for sure. But even within Harare, you've got centers of excellence. I have the privilege of working with outstanding world-class physicians, surgeons. It comes at a cost that a very large proportion of the population and increasingly a growing number of individuals are unable to access.
Speaking out like this about the failures of Zimbabwe's public services is difficult and can be dangerous. Health workers are forbidden from striking, and in July the government introduced a new law known as the Patriotic Act. It's vaguely worded, but as the Justice Minister put it, it prohibits private citizens from making false statements or undermining the country.
All right, so if you follow me through this way, we've got our main studio. We've just finished some of the renovations.
Zika, again not his real name, works for a production company, making films with young people about social justice and accountability. So does he hear young people talking about leaving the country?
Oh, no, of course. I think this is a conversation that must come up amongst young people all the time, if not at least once or twice a day. If it's not them, it's their parents. The interesting thing is, it's not, you'd think that the young people are the ones who want to go, and then like our parents and the older generations would be like, no, stay, you know, we're the ones who like lived in an almost apartheid system pre-Zimbabwe, Rhodesia. We've created the system where everybody's equal, should stay here. They're the ones who are being like, you know what, I think it's a better idea for you to go. You should go, you will have a better life. Rather you come back in like your 40s and 50s with a little bit of capital. Because the truth is, Zimbabwe with capital is a very nice place to live in. I'd never knock it. I think it's a great place, but not a lot of people at my age can actually get access to that kind of money, essentially.
Zika's right. Zimbabwe is a wonderful place to live if you're earning enough US dollars. An elite minority here enjoys big houses and beautiful gardens kept by staff on a tiny minimum wage. Among the richest of the rich are the gold smugglers, whose lives were put under the spotlight recently by a shocking Al Jazeera TV documentary. I mean, the big story this year, one of the big stories was the gold. Do you mind talking about this?
Yeah, sure. Let's give it a go.
The documentary showed how vast amounts of gold are smuggled out of Zimbabwe every month to Dubai in a complicated money laundering operation. It involves a small group of the elite who are making massive profits, among them, allegedly, the president, Emerson Mnangagwa. Zimbabwe's Ministry of Home Affairs says the country loses $100 million of gold every month.
It was a fun watch. in the most almost sadistic and depressing way. Because it was like, oh, we've always known this, but now we've got proof. Now we can actually pinpoint, we can like put names to hidden faces. But like, I don't think anybody's talking about it anymore at all, which is kind of sad considering how impactful it should have been with all of the information that came out.
And do you think these things are all linked together? You know, the corruption, the extreme personal enrichment that we're seeing among Zimbabwe's leaders, and lots of people, young people, all saying they want to leave. I mean, are these different parts of the same jigsaw?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, I genuinely think that if everybody was suffering, then you could go home and be like, oh, okay, no, we're all together in this, let's just stick with it, we'll make it better. But if you are working 12 hours a day, earning less than $100, it's not even enough for transport, for your public transport to get to work. And then
$100 a month.
$100 a month, yeah. And then you've got, I don't know, some kid of some elite MP who's like 15 and he's driving the latest Range Rover. It's kind of like, you kind of ask yourself, why am I here? Is it really worth it, So yeah, they're definitely all connected, for sure.
So have you considered leaving?
Yes, I have. I've considered going back to school, which is usually the channels that a lot of people use to leave, because it's a little bit cheaper, one, but the aim is to leave. And then I'm one of the lucky ones who I can afford to go.
And would your parents support that? Have your parents ever...
Oh, definitely. My mother, I think, is always in my ear asking me why I'm still here. I should just go.
Escape,
exactly.
It is extraordinary the number of people I've spoken to in the last few months who are making an escape plan.
Even the soldiers, police officers, teachers, they are training to be nurse aides so that they can go to UK. As long as they've got a nurse aid certificate, they're flying to UK. My daughter as well did the same.
Did she?
Yeah.
She's gone to the UK?
Not yet. She has got all the papers now. Yeah, she did the nurse aid training in Harare.
The care worker training?
Yeah, for like 6 months.
Okay. And how do you feel about her going?
I'll be so happy if if she gets a job in UK. I'll be so happy. Because imagine soon after she finishes school, she hasn't been employed up to now.
How many years is that?
That's like 3 years. She needs to start something new and experience a lot of things. That's how life it is. But staying here in Zimbabwe, nothing. She'll get nothing, just maybe to be married, and that's all.
Married and have babies.
And have babies, and that's all.
And you want more for her than that, hey? You're nodding.
Because I am actually in the process of just cleaning up, making sure that I leave the kitchen.
Escape isn't an option for everyone. Gloria works as a housekeeper. She's the only breadwinner in her family.
So today I made a roast chicken and a potato dauphinoise and broccoli and cauliflower as a side. That's what I made today.
Gloria is a qualified teacher and worked for many years in a secondary school, but the pay wasn't enough. So when her mother retired, she took over her job as a maid. She lives in small staff quarters with her husband and 3 children.
Okay, would you like to go to my house now? It's just a one-room place.
Hi, girls.
These are my kids.
Hi, girls. Evening.
It's a bit cold, so we have to shut this door. I assume they're doing their homework.
I'm 14, turning 15 on the 6th of November this year. Okay, I turned 19 in April.
And are you both at high school?
Yes, we are.
Gosh, this is very neat handwriting. What homework are you doing this evening?
I was writing notes on history. Okay, she was just asking me questions on her notes, so I was helping her.
Just like the hospitals, Zimbabwe's schools are at breaking point. The salary teachers receive from government is around $350 per month, barely enough to pay for transport and food. For months, they've effectively been on strike, turning up to schools so they don't lose their jobs, but refusing to teach the children unless parents pay extra.
How many subjects did you do today at school?
2. Accounts, name it.
So she's supposed to be doing 8 subjects, but apparently today she just did 2, which is the norm. There's not really much being done at school now.
And what do you girls do then? If you're not in lessons, what do you do at school all day?
I can read my notes because we have exams that are coming up. So I'll be busy reading and stuff and writing notes on other subjects.
So you're teaching yourself, basically?
Yes.
And what do you and your friends say to each other about it?
We blame the teachers because we see that they aren't coming, but then yet they are at school. But we just ask ourselves that why aren't they coming to teach us?
And do you ask the teachers that?
No, we don't ask them. We're kind of afraid of being beaten, So we don't ask them.
And meanwhile, are you finding that you're managing in your subjects? Are you coping without the teachers?
I think that is too hard for me. Without being explained on the notes, it's hard to catch up.
Well, we'll leave you to it. Thank you, girls.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye! See you later.
Gloria's children are all at government schools, but she still has to pay $170 per child per term. On top of that, she pays for extra tuition, bringing the total bill to $750 per term. It's the majority of her entire salary.
Like, I ask my daughter every day when she comes in, how many subjects have you done today? Sometimes she tells me just 1. Out of the 8. Thank God here we've got Wi-Fi, so she can actually read on stuff extensively because of the Wi-Fi that we have. But if it wasn't for that, then like I'll be having no education at all, nothing, and she'll be just there. And
so she's learning by Google?
She's learning by Google, and I'm trying to break poverty, and you can never break it without education. So that's scary. I'm scared that she won't be able to be self-sufficient later on because she won't have that education. And where does she go from here? How do you go to uni when you have failed? And the failing is not your fault per se, it's because no one has taught you anything.
You said before that you understand why the teachers have this attitude.
I actually empathize with them because I was a teacher. I understand where they're coming from. They don't have enough money. How do you teach on an empty stomach? Knowing that at home your kids can't even afford to go to school because you can't pay for them. So I empathize with them. I really don't blame them.
Earlier this year, the British government put Zimbabwe on a list of countries whose teachers can apply for qualified teacher status, allowing them to work long-term in the UK. So the exodus of care workers could become an exodus of the country's educators. Gloria has considered joining them.
All I want in the end is for my kids to have a proper education, for my kids to have a proper life, for me not to have to struggle so much, for my kids to actually have a bedroom each. Like, imagine we're living, the 5 of us, in one room. They don't even have a bed of their own. They sleep on the floor. That's not a life. I would hope my kids would actually have a bed each. I don't want my kids to be maids. I don't want them to live in a one-room place. I want my kids to be doctors, to be pilots. And at the moment, that's not possible. My greatest fear is me failing as a parent to give them that life that they deserve, not to give them enough education for them to be upstanding citizens and just plunging into poverty.
Gloria supplements her maid's income by doing 2 or 3 other jobs, taxi driving and childcare.
My head is always in overdrive.
You're rubbing your forehead.
Yes, I have a headache. Sorry, it's just I have headaches every single time. And my greatest fear right now is I may just die and leave my kids. That's the truth. And if I do, what are my kids going to do without me?
And is that why you feel you couldn't go to the UK or overseas?
No one will take care of them.
It's a luxury to be able to go.
It is. It is.
Back in the UK, for Rose, it was also the sleepless nights, the endless worry about where the money was going to come from that pushed her to leave her country and her child behind.
Enough. I said enough. I weighed the pros and cons, and I saw that I would rather miss my family and at the same time try and make a life for myself and my family as well eventually when I get to settle. So I left my child. My daughter will soon be 10 years old, and it's quite heart-wrenching because I just have to communicate with her via video phone calls. It's not the same. It's time being lost. She also feels the strain because she's at a certain age in her life where she wants to be with her parents, but unfortunately that cannot happen due to reasons beyond my control. And it's a sad reality, really. Mm-hmm.
I'm Charlotte Ashton, and that was Assignment from the BBC World Service. The producer was John Murphy. It was mixed by Rod Farker. The production coordinator was Gemma Ashman. The editor of the series is Penny Murphy.
What in the World is the podcast exploring the stories and the issues that you need to know about.
93% of fast fashion workers aren't getting paid a living wage.
The former president is accused of trying to overturn democracy.
How do elite athletes train in and around their menstrual cycle?
Understand more, feel better with What in the World from the BBC World Service. Find it wherever you get your BBC podcasts and hit subscribe.